Good evening. Good evening. My name is Dick Clay, and I'm the president and CEO of the Filson Historical Society. Thank you for joining us, whether you're here in person or watching the recorded program online. We're delighted to partner with the Christina Lee Brown Envirom Institute to bring you the Theodore Sedgwick Distinguished Lecture Series. Our featured speaker, Charlie Grady, will hold a question and answer session at the conclusion of his talk, and we ask you to please use the microphones at the front of the lecture hall so that all may hear the question. This talk is being recorded, and we want your questions to be audible to the people who are gathered here tonight, as well as those who will be watching later. We'll begin this evening's programs with remarks from Dr. Javon Reed, who is Simmons College of Kentucky's Chief Academic Officer and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Dr. Reed is an ardent HBCU supporter and advocate for marginalized students. We will hear about his work here in Kentucky with the federally sponsored Second Chance Pell Grant program, a program that affords incarcerated individuals a real chance at educational rehabilitation. And now I'll turn the microphone over to Dr. Reed.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I am truly honored and excited to stand before you just to talk about, I can talk about Simmons all day long, but thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak about the Second Chance Pell Program and its role in providing students a real opportunity to be reintegrated back into society post-incarceration. And today we'll be discussing how our program at Simmons College of Kentucky utilizes a college system to provide second chances to people to facilitate their life back into society, a productive life back into society. But for those who do not know, that the Second Chance Pell experimental initiative was originally launched by the U.S. Department of Education in 2015, and it has been instrumental in providing need-based grants to individuals in both state and federal prisons. This program has allowed more than 40,000 students to enroll in post-secondary education institutions. It basically opens the doors of opportunities that they may not have otherwise had. However, it is important to acknowledge that there are racial and gender disparities that persist in both enrollment and completions, highlighting the need for the continued efforts to ensure equitable and equity and success. So that's why today's conversation is so important. It's so important to highlight all of the statistical data and all of the information as it relates to what it truly means to earn a college degree while incarcerated. At Simmons College of Kentucky, the Second Chance Pell Program was launched in February of 2003. We have our director who does the day-to-day operations here, Mr. Ben Harris. So Mr. Ben, you stand really quick. Mr. Joel Agoza provides instruction for our students as well. But since then, it has concluded 2 semesters and we're well into our 3rd semester. And it's been remarkable to witness the progress made by the participants. So collectively, they've earned over 1,100 credits thus far. So this program has become a beacon of hope, offering pathways to education and personal growth to those who may not have otherwise felt a way to make it out of this trap in this reciprocal process of incarceration. So furthermore, I am delighted to share that we bringing on board now this semester the Kentucky Correctional Institute for Women. And they'll be joining us in this process, and they started courses this fall semester. And so with this addition, the total program enrollment for fall 2023 is 149 students at Simmons College. It's worth noting that these efforts are underway to expand the applicant pipeline, and it aims at increasing the increase of the overall enrollment of our programs in the coming months. To ensure a successful transition and reintegration back into society, Simmons College of Kentucky recognizes the importance of a holistic approach. The Division of Academic Affairs has been actively collaborating with career services and chapel services to develop virtual programming and content. These initiatives are designed to assist for both spiritual and career development, providing students with the necessary tools post-incarceration. Additionally, this type of collaboration between the colleges and the other faith-related institutions in the community has allowed us to provide a vouch system, if you will, for those individuals who will be reintegrated back into society. And I think those type of interworkings of this programs create what I call a triangulated assessment, or a triangulation of success. But what we need is to encompass more opportunity for housing, more opportunity for workforce development, and more opportunities to provide these systems of accountability that only institutions like colleges can offer. Institutions that can vouch, if you will, for these justice-involved individuals play a critical role in the process, and these institutions represent more than just academic support. They foster a sense of belonging, connections, confidence, and accountability. And education, when coupled with the support of these networks, has proven to be powerful catalysts for change in successfully reintegrating people back to society. In conclusion, the Second Chance Pell program at Simmons College served as an exemplary model for successfully reintegrating students back into society post-incarceration. And by leveraging a college system and partnering with supportive institutions and employers, participants are given a real second chance at education and an opportunity to rebuild their lives. So let's continue to foster a society that recognizes the potential of every individual and provides them with the resources needed for a successful transition. And together we can build a more inclusive and equitable society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reed, for sharing your vision and your thoughts and your experience with us. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aruni Bhatnagar. I'm the director of the Christina Lee Brown Environment Institute. And this institute, although it's a part of the university and the medical school, is dedicated to the idea that health is more than just a physical trait. It is a social resource that we earn from being in an environment among healthy parts of our community. We are working on this new vision of health idea in which we think that there are different facets of health, and intellectual health and spiritual health, and there is cultural health and so on. And you can find all of them. This is what we sort of dedicated our work towards. And so within that domain, we've been sort of attempting to reach out to have a wider sort of social input and agenda and understanding of what real health is. And in helping us to do that, we've recruited Ambassador Todd Sedgwick as a scholar in residence, and it is a tribute to his intellect and his curiosity that we've been able to invite some of the best speakers to this lecture series, and that we have been able to learn such a diverse perspective about the true meaning of health. So for introducing tonight's speaker, I invite Ambassador Sedgwick.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Todd Sedgwick. It's a great privilege for me to introduce Charlie Grady. I met Charlie in a meeting in Washington of the Young Presidents Organization. And I don't know, it was one of those things where the first time I met him, I could tell that I was in the presence of a really remarkable individual. He was born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut. He's had a highly decorated career in law enforcement. He was a detective assigned to the Joint Task Force of 3 agencies, the Kentucky State Police Narcotics Unit, the DEA, and the FBI, as well as being deputized by the U.S. Marshals Service. But this is not all. During his entire career in law enforcement, he was also a professional musician, film actor, stage, television, appearing in such shows as Guiding Light, All My Children, Law and Order, and as well as films like Breaking Point and Diamond Rough. So, I know we were supposed to be able to ask questions. My only question is, when do you sleep, Charlie? He later became the first ever U.S. Attorney's internal investigator. And in 2012, he helped launch the U.S. Attorney and Governor's anti-gun violence program called Project Longevity in New Haven. And 10 years ago, he was asked to create and run Project Longevity in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is the most violent city in Connecticut, where he successfully developed a program that provides many support and services for ex-offenders and members of the community that seek to denounce the violence around the gang lifestyle. He has again been chosen to be the FBI Community Outreach Specialist for the whole state of Connecticut. In this new role, he educates community members, law enforcement, and judicial members on ways to effectively build a more safe and tolerant community. So in other words, he took some of the same offenders that he put in jail and worked with them after they got out of jail to give them a path to a constructive citizenship. So please join me in welcoming Charlie Grady.
Good afternoon. Or are we at evening yet? I never get that right. I want to make sure I get that right. I must warn you in advance. I'm a walker and talker, and the fact that I can't move from this microphone is killing me. I want to be closer to the people. I want to be a part of the community. I want to first start out by thanking Mr. Theodore Todd Sedgwick for his gracious invite to be here in Kentucky. It's my first time in Kentucky. And I can tell you that Southern hospitality is real. Everyone that I've met here and soon to meet have been fantastic with me. I'm humbled by the greeting and the care that I've been treated with. And I'm also really impressed with the fashion sense here. And okay, there are some people here that are doing the thing. I'm just saying. And I appreciate that. So I also want to send a special shout out and thank you to Miss Osha, who worked with me earlier today, as well as Regina and Rachel Greenberger, the mayor's wife. I met with them and spoke in some real intimate setting of what's going on. How do we work together? How do we build and make sure that our society that is so troubled in these moments, in these times, we find a way to come together. And I'm going to start by saying that we in this room are they. And I'm going to end by saying that we in this room are they. Because the minute one of you walks out of this room and points back and goes, they need to fix that, you are they. Uh-oh, we're all here as they. So I want to just throw to a video really quickly that will just get your insights focused on the type of work that I do now. So to be clear, I am here today as a CEO and founder of 4 separate nonprofits in the state of Connecticut. I have taken off my FBI hat. I know that's hard for you guys to imagine, but I've taken off that hat, and because I want to come to you as a community member. So no matter how much distance there is between us, we are all very similar. The homeless plight that you are going through, the youth violence and gun violence that you are going through and observing and witnessing in Kentucky is happening across the country, right? It is 2023. This is the state of our country. So I want to kind of put that on the table, because what makes my situation somewhat unique is my background. As you heard Mr. Sedgwick talk about, I came up in a family of 5 uncles who were cops, and my father was a police officer. So I basically got indoctrinated into law enforcement long before I knew what was happening. But I want you to take a look at this video, and they'll recognize there's a whole lot that happened between the time I grew up and where I stand today, where I put my life on the line, my heart and soul, in doing the work for reintegration of individuals coming home from incarceration. So this is just a video, please, if you would show that.
Once upon a time, my mindset was just trying to make as much money as I could, as fast as I could.
I saw drugs.
Hustling, stealing, robbing, hanging in the street. I wasn't a good person. I was in and out of jail.
It was a part of the game.
They was just making up my own rules. I wanted to feel like I mattered.
My pride wouldn't allow me to ask for help.
I did everything that I needed to do to survive.
There's this whole perception about everybody can pull themselves up from the bootstraps, right? Well, that's not real. If no one's willing to give you an opportunity, you don't even have boots.
My daughter was probably 2 months when I was incarcerated. Before you know it, she's walking. Before you know it, she's talking. Those are the things that cause the real change.
Miss my daughter's prom, to miss her graduation. I wasn't there. That was it for me. So I wanted to make a change for myself. And I promised her and my son that I wasn't gonna go to prison again.
One year, one of my younger sisters got indicted with my brother. And that's when I realized I gotta do something different.
I didn't know what I was gonna do. I just knew I didn't wanna go back to jail, nor did I wanna die.
I always knew that there was an end game, just didn't understand exactly how to exit.
I wasn't given anything. Everything I got, I had to earn.
I thought that hustling and selling drugs and carrying guns and hanging on the corners, I thought that was normal. I thought you had to do that to survive. So for me, the change was something that switched off. And either the streets are gonna take over and I'm gonna go back to prison, or I'm gonna just take this step and see what hang time can do for me.
Those individuals who had to overcome major obstacles, they just have to have a direction other than what they believed was their only option. The minute you show them the sustainability of living a different life is real, now you've made an impact.
Some people make a mistake in life and then gotta live with it. Here, you don't have to. Hang Time touches a community that people don't want to touch. It's proof that you can change, and I did.
We all talk about freedom of speech, but you know what you can and can't say in certain circles. You know you got to keep your job. You can't say what you're really thinking or what you're really feeling. Whereas when you come to Hang Time, all restrictions are gone.
Hang Time gives you an opportunity where you can share your opinion and no one can tell you you're wrong.
It's a safe space where you're respected and treated as if you matter.
It's something that can change people's lives.
Once I get here, it's like a reunion, it's like a revival. It's like I'm recharging myself for the whole week. This gives me energy and this gives me positive motivation to move on.
Hang Time is needed in every community because it plants seeds of hope. It plants seeds of change. It addresses real problems, and not only that, it offers solutions.
They take this beautiful slice of community, love, and humanity and walk out of the Hang Time room and carry it with them through the rest of their lives.
My favorite thing about Hang Time is I learn something new every time.
It was a social issue. It's some history, learning about different cultures, because there's so many different types of people down there at Hang Time, different ethnicities and religions, and everybody saying how they felt. And I'm like, that's what gets me going.
Hang Time was different because wherever I wanted to go, wherever my plan was to do, they were with me every step of the way.
I just got an apartment. I got a car. These people pushed me to do that. If somebody saw that in me, I must be changing.
If you need help, if you need a change, if you need support, someone to talk to when it comes to your mental health, physical health, education, if you need a hug.
Hang Time changed my life beyond measure.
You have a community of network that you could tap into for whatever it is that you're looking for.
Positive people have positive conversations, positive things come out of it.
And these people are actually doing something so spectacular in their lives. I started living each day with purpose because of Hang Time.
I would like people to know that if you put 1 foot forward, Hang Time will put 2, and we won't let you down.
The day I met you, my life extended. I got on the right path. I want to make the universe better for me and my kids and someone else's kids.
I want to help somebody.
Everyone that I met at Hang Time and everyone I'm soon to meet, I always have your back. I believe in you.
I knew something good was going to come out of here.
If you are ready for lifelong change,
to be able to help the next me.
It gives you peace and happiness.
I just want to make my mark here.
I have one question for you. Tell me who you are, where you're from, why you're mad or why you're glad, and when you're coming to Hang Time. I'm going to back into that video. I intentionally played that video first to make you understand the passion that goes into the work that I'm doing. You often hear people talk about living their life with purpose. I found mine. I walk in purpose every day. I tell my wife I can lay in my bed, arms across, smiling, looking up at the ceiling. I can lay in a coffin, not soon, with a smile on my face, knowing that I've helped to change and reconstruct the lives of many. That's what we're here for. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. At the age of 13, how did I get here? In 1974, I told you my father and my uncles were cops. And I remember being in the room and watching these incredible Black men be servants to the community. And the things that they would do, you all know the stories about back in the day, policing was very different, right? And people, hey, you better watch yourself. I'm going to tell your mother what's going on. And people would say, whoa, okay, don't tell mommy and don't tell Auntie Joni. I grew up in that era. In 1974, I was 13 years old. And me and one of my best friends were on our way home from playing basketball, a cold winter night. And we stepped up onto the curb, and suddenly a car slid out of control, came up onto the curb, and struck us both. My friend went airborne, landed face first on the windshield, cracked the windshield. I got lucky, fell to the side. He got a concussion, broken nose, broke his finger. So we called the police. Now, bear with me here, because I am not insulting anyone. I am giving you for real facts. I'm giving you for real lifelong experience that has brought me to a place where I am today. We'll talk a little bit about police culture. We'll talk a little bit about recidivism. We'll talk a little bit about the idea of what it takes to create a society where people do not recidivate at such a high rate. We go to the police station to report a hit and run. Ambulance came, took my buddy. Me and my father go to the police station. We had a very clear description of the car that hit us. And back then it was a wagon that had the wood paneled sides. Now you can't miss that, right? We get to the police station. As we park and we walk to the front of the police station, we walk by the parking lot of the police station. And lo and behold, there's the car. And my thought was, wow, the West Haven Police Department's amazing. They got the car already. And you could see the indent and the crack in the windshield from my best friend. We walk into the front. I'm feeling good about this. The police are amazing. The sergeant came and he's told my father, who he did not know was an officer at the time. He said, yeah, we'll get the information. We'll take it. My father says, my son says that the car that hit him is in the parking lot. And you could see, oh, and he turned and he walked away. He was gone for a few minutes. He came back and he goes, nah, you must be mistaken. That can't be the car. We'll do a report. We'll do that. And I'm going, Dad, that's the car. In the back, I see the guy who hit us staggering. He was DUI and the whole thing was covered up. My father said, shh, don't say a word. Okay. I don't know how he dealt with that, but he did. Fast forward 2 years, I'm 15 years old, and I go to a concert, a rap concert. Rap is booming. It's raging. Big Daddy Kane is coming to New Haven. Come on now. I had to be in the room. And I get there and it's oversold. And people that are outside who paid can't get in. So they start to push on the line. And they force the door open and they crack the windows and it becomes a full-blown riot. I'm 15. I'm in New Haven. I live in West Haven. My father's a cop. I don't want my father to see me at this concert. I take off running like everybody else. And we run towards a town called Hamden, Connecticut. At the time, there were 2 Black officers in Hamden. And if this sounds racially charged, it's not. It's factual. 2 Black officers on the department. We get to the city line, the town line of Hamden, and just like you see in the movies in the 60s, there they stood with their batons and their riot gear. And this one little skinny cop, who was the boss, clearly, he said to us, y'all better go back to New Haven. We don't want you in this city, in this town. Take that mess back to New Haven. And he said, ain't that right, guys? And they all said, yes, sir. So I turned my little black butt around and I went back the other direction. No more conflict. That was Hamden Police Department. Fast forward, I'm 21 years old, me and that same best friend, who's now disfigured from the accident that we had when we were 13. He says, you'd be a great cop. He says, there needs to be some change in policing. He says, you can't just talk about it, be about it. He says, I dare you to go and become a cop. And I swore I wanted to be a white collar guy. I did not want to be a blue collar guy because all my uncles did the blue collar thing. And it just got them mediocrity. I wanted to make some money. I wanted to have fancy cars, pretty suits. I did all right. So I took the test, but I was cognizant not to take the test at New Haven Police Department where my father was now in rank because I didn't want everything being said. He only got that because of his father's political connection. Because nepotism in politics run a lot of municipal departments and state agencies. If that offends someone, I'm sorry, but it's real. So I took the test, and guess where I took the test? Hamden Police Department. And I got hired. And guess who was one of my supervisors? Y'all boys better turn around now. Was one of my supervisors. True story. I tell that story only because it really, really highlighted the impact that law enforcement has on people every single day, whether you realize it or not. As a law enforcement personnel, you can shape and change people's view, not just of you as a human being, but of law enforcement as a whole. So I'm a rookie police officer. Now there's 3 on the police department, and I am the first Black motorcycle police officer in the history of the department. And they call me Chocolate Chips after the TV series. That's right, they call me Chocolate Chips. But guess what? You never let them see you sweat, baby. I wore the title proudly because I earned a slot on the police department, and I intended to be human and change the way things were being done. Little did I know at 21 years old, you don't change things that way. But I was hell-bent on doing so. One of the first things you learn about law enforcement is not to go to a domestic situation by yourself. But I'm 21, I'm 156 pounds, I'm soaking wet, 156 pounds. I'm the police, I'm a cop. I've been through the academy, I got a badge, I got a matching shirt and pants. That makes me special. And guess what else I got? I got a 6-shooter, Smith & Wesson, Model 19 on my hip. And they get a call. Hey, we got a domestic going good, way up in the hills. I'm on my way. I show up. I hear boom, bang, bang. Yeah, you better send backup. I'm at the north end of the town. The police department is all the way at the south end. Backup's not coming for a while, but I hear the noise. I know through all of my training, I am not supposed to go into that atmosphere alone. But I just told you, I'm 156 pounds soaking wet. I got a 6-shooter, a hollow nightstick, and a badge. The door opens up. There's a woman standing there and she's looking at me, blood coming from her lip, big molly gob on her forehead. All of my Italian brother and sister know what that means. And I'm looking at her for a quick second. And as I said, ma'am, are you okay? A hand grabbed her and pulled her out of the doorway. And in that moment, I saw a man wearing the real life wife beater, not the proverbial wife beater. And he was about 4 foot, nothing. But he was as wide as he was tall. And he pulled her out of the doorway and he started to slam the door. But I told you all I had a nightstick. And I took my nightstick and I shoved it between the door and I stopped the door from closing completely. And he was upset. And he opened the door and he says, you tell the Hamden Police Department if they want to take me to jail for beating my wife, to send a real police officer and not an N-word in his father's uniform. You know what shocked me the most about that? How did he know my father was a cop? He didn't. It was just his racist way. And I pushed through that door, all 156 pounds of me. And I saw the house was in disarray. It was a total mess. This was long before the Tracy Thurman case changed domestic violence laws in the state of Connecticut and impacted the country. That you can't just walk away from a domestic. I walk in, I get into a physical altercation with this man. I just told you, I'm the skinny, scrawny kid. He threw me around that kitchen like I was a fly on an elephant. The entire time I'm saying, sir, you're under arrest. I'm choking him and he's... The worst place you want to be in a domestic situation for all your training is in the kitchen. Why? Because there's knives. You know what the second worst place is? The bedroom. Why? Because everybody keeps their pow-pow in the bedroom, by the bed, under the bed, in the closet where they can get it. Guess where we ended up? He dragged me down the hall on his back into the bedroom. By the time we made it to the bedroom, the both of us were exhausted. We stood there, he threw me off. I was on one side of the bed, he was on the other, and we looked at each other like this. I said, you're going to jail. He says, I'm not to go into jail. I said, sir, you're going to jail. He says, I'm not to go into jail. And before he could finish, I heard, whoop, whoop. And I smiled. I said, you're going to jail. The troops came in, they handcuffed him, true story, 2 pair of handcuffs to get behind his back because that's how wide he was. They took him away. And at the time, police officers laughed on the radio by clicking the radio, right? That's the way they laughed. He leaves before me. I get the information from his wife. I head out. I get my hat. My badge is ripped off. I'm looking like somebody just... I get all the way to the police station, but the whole time down there, I'm hearing click, 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 right? And it's my own fault. I know I'm not supposed to do that, but I was arrogant and young. I get to the police station, and at the time, they had him handcuffed at the table, a cement slab, so he couldn't move the table. And Vito sees me coming in the door. And the cops are laughing. You learned your lesson, didn't you, kid? Shut up, leave me alone. I walk in and Vito says, hey, kid, come here. I ain't afraid of you. We'll go again. He says, nah. He says, I like you. He says, you got a pair on you, kid. He says, you didn't give up. He says, I know I'm wrong for beating my wife, but I like and respect you for what you did. If you ever want to buy a car, I own a car lot down here. You just whooped my ass, and now you're trying to sell me a car. True story. Fast forward from that day, I did go to his car lot. I did not buy a car. But I did go. And when I walked onto the car lot, 2 sons came out like mini-me's of Vito. They came running over to me. They go, my father told us what happened. He loves you. And I'm like, what is going on? He comes out like we're all long lost golf buddies, hugging me. And he's going, this is great. I could, within a year of that instance, this helps to shape me. I need you to understand where I'm coming from with all that I do. I learned the most valuable lesson there, and I'm going to share one more with you. But fast forward, within a year, I could go to Vito's house, put my feet up on his coffee table at his house, and call his wife mom. And she say, yes, son, what do you want for lunch before you go back on the street? Why? Because I was persistent that I was not going to allow Vito to hate me without knowing me. I was persistent that Vito had to know the human experience of me, not just the skin color and what he saw on the news of me. Vito died years later. His son said, hey, Charlie, Pop wants to see you. He's not doing well. He's got a couple days. I showed up at Yale New Haven Hospital. He took my hand. He was a skeleton of the man that I fought with. And he says, you taught me a lot. He says, I was wrong my whole life about Black people. He says, you taught me a lot. He says, please take care of my family for me when I'm gone. He died 2 days later. Shape me, mold me, absolutely. Empower me, Absolutely. Because I recognize that we can overcome stereotypical hate. It's easy to hate from a distance. Until you get to know someone's circumstance and get to know them, you don't care enough. The last one I'll share with you, as a police officer in 1987 on the task force, we had a drug dealer from New York show up in Hamden and set up shop. I got information. I was good at my job. And we raided his house with a search and seizure warrant and found at least 1,000 packets of heroin, prepackaged, ready for sale. The individual who was responsible for it, his name was Freddie Williams, Jr. And I say that name proudly because he allows me to say his name because he's proud of the story and his turnaround in his life. And he credits me in large part for helping that. That night, cops are walking by, piling up heroin on the table. And Big Fred, tattoos, tough guy, drug dealer from New York, moved to little old Hamden. Big Fred is sitting at the table and slowly but surely there's tears coming down his face. I'm looking at him, I'm confused. He says, "Can I talk to you a minute?" I said, "Man, I'm working here. What do you want?" Because back then it was us versus them. It was the good guys versus the bad guys, which really isn't real. Because the minute anyone in here has a relative who's addicted to a substance illegally, your loved one is now the bad guy, quote unquote, us versus them. But back then, the culture was rich with us versus them. And he said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Yeah, sure." He says, "If I can only get out of this trouble," he says, "I promise to turn my life around." He says, "I don't have a father." And I turned to the streets because it was the only place where I saw and received love. I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." I walk away. I come back through. He's looking at me with sheer disappointment in me as a Black man talking to him. And it hit me. Maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe he's legitimately and for real. So I sat back down and I talked to him. While all the cops were coming around, I said, "Bro, listen to me. You got all this heroin on your table. You got to go to jail. It's going to happen." I said, "But here's what I'll promise you. If you're real, if you truly want to turn your life around, when you come home, I will be here waiting for you and I will help you turn your life around." Don't ask me where that came from. It probably came from Vito. It probably came from my uncles. It probably came from my experience growing up. But I immediately recognized the need to humanize this man's experience and be human back. And I promised him that. He did 1.5 years in prison, and I called on his day of release, and I went to his house. No one asked me to do that. I went to his house. Who was more shocked? He was. When he opened the door and I stood there, I said, "Freddie, you're home. Let's go." I got him into New England Tractor Trailer Service trucking, got him a job, helped him get his first apartment because he didn't own the house that he was selling drugs out of. And I stayed with him when he failed. Because until you do a W-2 job and you work with HR and you pay taxes, you don't have any concept of that world. If you spent your life selling drugs from the front porch, you have no concept, because there's this misnomer and this misconception that if you can sell drugs on the street, you can be a CEO of a corporation. No, that's not real. And they find out every day that it's not real, because a CEO of the corporation has to deal with human resources, has to deal with taxes, has to deal with environmental situations. You don't have to do that when you're selling drugs on the porch or riding around the car delivering drugs. So stop with all the nonsense is what I tell people every single day. Entrepreneurship is real. Pursue it. And they should. Freddie now owns his own trucking company. He owns more houses than most of us in here throughout the country. He's a huge success. He was the poster child literally on the billboards along the highway for Net's New England Tractor Trailer. And he credits consistent support, which brings me to where I am. The program you saw is called Hang Time. I was running an anti-gun violence strategy for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I was the face of the program. So all of my people in here who come to this meeting from the heart because you work in nonprofit, please listen to me. Please connect with what I'm about to say. I was working with a bunch of incredible people in nonprofit. No one enters the nonprofit industry looking for money and looking to get rich. No one. The people that enter the nonprofit industry truly want change, truly come to work from their heart, because you enter that world knowing you're not getting rich and you may be underpaid, but you have a purpose. I was working with those people for the first time while I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and they were doing what I did with Freddie Williams Jr., but they were doing it at a magnitude way greater than what I was doing. So in doing the anti-gun violence strategy, I learned quickly I was the face of this program. So the people that we were telling, hey, put the guns down, or we're gonna get you and your gang and your group. And if you don't put the guns down, the consequences are going to be more severe. But if you do put them down, we're going to help you find a job. We're going to do this. But we didn't include me. I was passing these individuals off to social service individuals that were frustrated with the system. They weren't getting extra money to do this extra work. They had a list of people for housing, and we were asking them to take this individual who's got a long history of criminal background and put him at the top. Now, logically, we were saying to them, put him at the top because he's at high risk of being shot or being a shooter. So put him at the top, get him a house, get him a job, and he'll be okay. I was the face of that, only to realize that when I would send people there, they weren't doing it for a multitude of reasons. One, they weren't getting any extra money. Two, they had all these people ahead of my people, and they couldn't justify Sylvia and her 4 kids not getting an apartment over the guy who just committed, just came home from jail for committing shooting violations. It was just unbalanced. I recognized that they trusted me. They sat there and they said, I'm willing to change my life because I believe in you. I've heard what you do, but I'm not the one they're going to. And at that moment, I realized there's a gap. And guess what I do best? I fill gaps. So I recognize it's time to create something where when they come home from incarceration and they're couch surfing, the challenges of coming home from incarceration are endless. And it doesn't end when you get home. Even when you get the full pardon 5 years later, it still doesn't end because people know what they know. What I realize is that consistent, ongoing support is the only way to effect change. Because what was happening was there's a pop-up program here, and here's my definition of pop-up. Remember what I'm telling you. There's an initiative that needs to be met. We have a whole huge issue with car thefts, teens taking cars. That's the initiative. We're going to put together a task force, we're going to get some grant funding, and we're going to go after that issue. And then they set a standard of success behind the scenes. So when they get that standard of success, let's say that we have to make X amount of arrests, we have to make X amount of people that we put incarcerated for this. They get that, they check off the box. Now the funding that went for that pop-up program now gets moved to another initiative. So the program starts to fade. Go. Talk to me. I love it. I love it. We went to church for a minute. He said, amen. So those of you that work in this industry know that I'm speaking the truth because I call it a pop-up concept. And the reason the pop-up concept comes about is because somebody somewhere along the line is looking for advancement. That's all I'm gonna say. I realize I can't be a part of that because they're trusting me. So I am going to take it upon myself to actually work with individuals. And I'm going to create my own team of people that are coming from the heart, not for the paycheck, not for the political rise, not for the upturn. I'm going to create it. And that's what you see in that video. Hang time became a microcosm of a greater society that we all want and wish to live in. And what I mean by that is people coming home from incarceration are met with smiles, hugs, and love. Corny as it may seem, it goes a long way, especially if you've already been ostracized from your family. You don't have a place to go. You've been displaced from the judicial system, you come home, you're from New Haven, but you're in a halfway house in Waterbury, 40 minutes away. You don't know anybody in Waterbury. You're living there trying to start, and parole says to you, you got 30 days to get a job. If you don't get a job in 30 days, we're putting you back in jail. Listen, people without a criminal record can't get a job in 30 days. The system is stacked. So for me, the worst thing you can do is show me behind the curtain. Because the minute I see that individual organizations are getting funding for not actually doing the work, the minute I saw, and in full transparency, I had an individual try to tell me this early on, and I was like, no, that's not real. We're really making things happen. He says, listen, the money that was granted, 250,000 of the 850,000 is going to two organizations that have nothing to do with rehabilitation and reentry. And I was like, come on, that's too egregious. There's no way. And a month later, he was right. And that's when I was like, okay, is that how we're going to do it? Is that how we're going to do this? I know some tricks too. I know where the bodies are buried. So slowly but surely, we started getting trust, gaining trust from individuals coming home, proving to them that you care enough about their well-being was number one. Giving them a safe, comfortable environment. On any given Tuesday, since 2014, when I created Hang Time, it was just to be a safe space for individuals to come home and not be marginalized and not be ordered and talked and mandated to be there or mandated to act a certain way, because they've been indoctrinated to the judicial system. Walk along the side of the hallway, stand here, you can't stand there, you got to go pee here, you can't pee. All of that, I gave them a sense of freedom, a sense of self-choice. Something that simple built trust and gave them a sense of respect. I showed them respect. They knew my title. They knew I worked for the U.S. Attorney's Office at the time, and they were floored. Why would you care enough? So you remove the titles and you have human beings looking at each other. And when you're helping a human being, they ripple effect. They tell someone else, you know where I got real help? There's this thing that happens on Tuesday called Hang Time. You should come with me. The stories are endless, but I'll share one with you. We started this in 2014 with 8 individuals. 2 of the individuals that were in the room, just sitting there talking, freedom of speech, freedom to be who they are, treated with respect, the rules. You will be treated with respect, you will give respect, and you will be heard. Because you heard someone there say the voiceless. People have been incarcerated for extended periods of time are the voiceless. When you give them the opportunity, they come together because they want to prove. And my thing is often this: 8 individuals in the room, 2 of them are rival gang members that shot each other on site. They sit in the room, and I said, today you're going to prove that you are not the animals that the media portrays you to be. What? The minute you say that, it makes them stop and think, am I really an animal? I need to dispel that. I'm back out into society. So it started with just 8 individuals, 2 former guys that were rivals. At the end of the night, they shook hands and they went along their way. The following week, it turned into 14 individuals. The following week, it was 26 individuals. 9 years later, on any given Tuesday, there's 45 to 65 people in the room. It extends now past men to women formerly incarcerated. So Hang Time is men and women. It's also members of the community that live, work, and help to reintegrate. So if I continue to hold a program for the ex-offenders and keep them separate, how are they integrating? But when you bring the business owner, the parole officer off duty, the officer on duty into the room, and we break bread. You want to get somebody to have a good time and let loose? Feed them. Break bread, we sit, we have topic discussions, current history, and anything that is moving about in someone's head. We have those discussions. Real talk with respect is the motto. It sounds so simple. It sounds so basic. The truth of the matter is, I had 2 individuals shortly after we started. One guy sees another guy come in the room and he gets up and he starts to leave. And I go, where are you going? He says, well, me and that dude just shot at each other 2 nights ago. Well, he said, popped off at each other. Just that street stuff. I said, so what's that mean to me? I said, you're at hang time, bro. There's a safe radius around this room. Whatever beef you had before you got here no longer exists. You're a grown adult. You're going to act like an adult. You're going to get respect. You're going to give respect. And I realize I'm having this conversation with a guy who did 2 days earlier shooting at someone trying to kill him, right? Why should he care about what I have to say? You know why? Because I was the only closest thing to a father figure that that young man had. I was the closest thing to a father figure to say to him, knock it off. So I pulled the two guys in the room. I sat between them. I'm 180 pounds now. But they could have squashed me like a bug if they decided that they didn't want to do it. And I realized I became stronger as I imparted on them their value. And they became stronger. By the time we got back out into the room, there was 2 seats left. They were sitting knee to knee. And I'm not going to say that they were like, kumbaya. At the end of the night, they hugged it out and they said, dead that? Yeah, okay, let's dead that. We will never know how many lives were saved from the stray bullets because this is where they shoot. We'll never know how many lives were saved, but we know for sure 2 people's lives were saved from being in a room where they were respected, treated with respect, and given opportunities. So I'm going to wrap this up because I know I'm going a little long and I want to make sure I get questions answered. From the result, if you would please put up my photo of the group. Yeah, that one. So from hang time was born her time. So it started out as men. And as the rooms started to fill, the women, the mothers, the girlfriends started to show up because they could not believe that men were showing up at a program on a Tuesday night that they weren't mandated to go to from parole. And they thought they had a side chick. So the women would show up and they'd be peeking in the window. and we would literally go like, come on in here, Ethel. So we realized the women's lives are stunted and put on hold when their boyfriends, husbands, sons, daughters, wives are incarcerated. They now are stuck picking up the barrel. They are working 2 jobs. They are putting their dreams on hold. So we give them a place to unify, unwind, and unite. This is just a visual of one session, and excuse the pixelation. We also created a spinoff Choices program, and it is a program where formerly incarcerated men and law enforcement together show up and speak at high schools to high school athletes. Why do we choose high school athletes? Because if anyone here has ever been on a high school team, you know that you're an influencer. You're on the team. You represent the school. Now, you may not be the star athlete, but you're on the team. And if we can get the star athletes to impart better choices among their peers and the students that follow them, we're making an impact. I had no idea that this was going to take off so well. Quick story, one individual, this is Crosby High School in Waterbury. One individual's name was Ray. He was the captain of the team. We showed up. Ray was amazing. He was the leader for sure. He told all the students, put your phones over here while speakers talk. And I was like, and the kids didn't balk. Imagine you telling a group of kids, put your phone away, right? You'd have a problem. They did it for Ray. He was a leader. The second session we went in, Ray was solemn, he was quiet. And I said, Ray, what's going on with you? He says, listen, I got 4 offers, full scholarships to college on the table to play football. But both of my older brothers are in jail and my mother is sick. The streets are calling. Quote unquote, the streets are calling. That's why we started the program in the first place. And when he said that phrase, I picked up the phone and I called up a woman named Juliet, who owns a tire shop. And she had just talked to me 2 days earlier. Because when you're doing great things happen. So business owners start to recognize that this is a place to be, to help the community. So I talked about a microcosm of society. It's starting to spread. It's like wildfire. I called Miss Juliet from the classroom, big mistake. And I said, I got a guy who needs a job. She said, send him over to me, $22 an hour. Before he walked out of there, he had a job. All the other students like, Mr. Grady, what about me? I'm like, I don't have that many jobs, my friend, but we'll work something out. That program is now extended. So P. Diddy, the rapper, we are in 2 of his schools in Connecticut and soon to be in the Bronx in his schools with our program called Choices. And the Last program I want to share with you is a program called the Connecticut Hall of Change. And selfishly, I need for you all to really, really pay attention to this when don't play it yet. I'm sitting at home watching the news with my wife, and I had the remote, and I'm all right, I'm lying. She had the remote because she's the boss. I'm watching the news. The newscaster said, and in other news, a career criminal is going back to prison. And I saw the image of a face come up there. I didn't know the individual personally, but he looked like the guys that come to hang time. And I thought to myself, I don't know any of the individuals at hang time that woke up on Monday morning and said, you know what I want to be for the rest of my life? A career criminal. Doesn't happen. Environment, circumstances, mental illness, all of those things play in. And I thought to myself, that is not fair to label that individual as a career criminal based on the worst choices that he's made. I work with people every day that are doing phenomenal things, that have rehabilitated themselves and do great things to give back to the communities that they once violated. I want to change the stigma because there's a huge stigma. And every once in a while, I don't know if they do it here in Kentucky, but politicos will embark in Connecticut on this exercise where they are given the same resources. It's a real life exercise on how to survive coming home with a felony. And if they fail, they go back to jail. And all of them end up going back to jail because they can't do what they're expecting other people to do. So the Hall of Change, Connecticut Hall of Change, recognizes 8 individuals each year. There's 8 counties in Connecticut. One from each county is inducted into the Hall of Change. Play on the word fame. It's the Hall of Change because over a 5-year period, they not only have turned their lives around, but they've turned the lives around of others through their nonprofit work, through their charity work, whatever it is that they're doing in the community that they once created havoc in, they are overcoming that and twofold, doing more for the community. Those people are memorialized in the State Museum. Their likeness, their picture, their story is on a wall on display at a state museum. It adds to be inspiration for those coming home. We also go inside of the prisons and speak to individuals coming home within a month so that they're inspired and they get some real life education on what to expect. We also go to the Chief State's Attorney's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office, as well as police academies and prosecutors onboarding as new prosecutors. And we interact with all of law enforcement to humanize the experience before they go into the system, so that they're not going into a jaded system without having a better understanding of the truth and the ability of people to turn their lives around. So without further ado, we'll just show you just a little bit from our annual ceremony that we do every year. And it is an induction ceremony, and Chief State's Attorneys and U.S. attorneys are big fans of what we're doing. Thank you. Come join us, the Connecticut Hall of Change 2023.
Coming Chief State's Attorney, we have incorporated the Hall of Change folks and hang time into our training. Okay. So every new prosecutor undergoes a session with folks who've been formerly incarcerated. So, you know. That's awesome. Yeah.
If anyone that comes from a past like that can do something to change their lives and change their community, that's definitely a motivation and inspiration for me to want to do the same.
I am truly honored. I would like to send a special thanks to my 4 kids here. That's in the second row here. You guys are my heroes. You guys are my heroes. You guys supported me. You stuck by me. You were my coaches. You were my sponsor. when I was struggling. We don't have to struggle no more.
I aspire to inspire, so I hope like the great A's of the past, present, and future continue to walk in the likeness and keep their joy through all the storms that we go through.
We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely appreciate the change they have gone through to achieve that beauty. And tonight we're celebrating that same type of transformation that we have heard about. People who have survived trauma, situations that caused them to go on the wrong path, and somehow they have come out on the other end, not just surviving, but thriving and passing it on.
The inductees better than anyone know that change, and when we talk about change, we're talking about real, lasting, transformative change is hard.
It isn't where you came from, it's where you're going that counts. Keep making your success turn into good memories. You will have a fulfilled life. Congratulations.
I'm going to end as I started. We are they. I took this on. I don't make a dime. I don't pull a salary. If we get $50 in grant money, I put $51 into the program and to the people that make the program work. I have a 90% of my staff is formerly incarcerated. The other 10% are justice involved. So if you don't see the value and the ripple effect, this is a win-win for every state. My ultimate goal is to have the Hall of Change in every state, all 50 states. So for me to be in Kentucky, that's what I want to see. I'm willing to work with anyone and everyone to make that happen. And at the end of the year, they can convene in DC and help recreate the judicial system. That's my goal. So with that, I open up to questions. I know people have to leave. Thank you so much for coming. I'll be there a little later. Any questions? Thank you. 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 No questions? Everybody wants to go home. Go ahead. Okay.
Amazing.
Thank you.
That is out of this world. There is part of the population that I wonder, are you touching it or not? And the little short background, my daughter, who's a clinical psychologist, was the director of mental health at the male federal prison in Nashville, Tennessee. And so when we talked about her experiences, that she went to good school, so she was good prepared. She said, Mom, the best time I have during the week are those 3 hours that I'm teaching qualified prisoners to be prepared for the 24-hour watch. She said, Mom, they are giving their soul for 50 cents for that job. So I wondered, do you touch that part of population before they get out and in your hands? Wouldn't it be wonderful to kind of prepare them to come to the world and accept what they did and what is in front of them?
Yeah. So the struggle we have, great question. Do we intervene? Do we do anything inside of correctional facilities before they come home? So at one point prior to COVID, we were actually going into facilities at the 3-month mark. When individuals were being released at 3 months, we would make visits once a month to them and prep them for what to expect when they come home, realistic preparation. Because it's a thing that happens psychologically where they don't recognize themselves when they start to do good, right? So they're used to living a certain lifestyle, and when they come out and they have a W-2 job and so forth, they're addicted to this rush of the street. and then they no longer have that, and they say all the time, my life is boring. And then that leads to them going back into looking for something to excite. So we would have those conversations. Now that COVID shut us down, and we're just in Connecticut starting to get back into that realm where we're going back in, but we're going in a month in advance. But what I will tell you about the mental health piece, most people don't recognize this, or at least don't discuss it. And this is something that you all need to sort of focus on. There's over 70% of all individuals, male and female, and I stress male and female, that are incarcerated today have been sexually molested as children. So again, if we're talking about growing ripe, healthy fruit, we have to start with the soil. And so when we look at what leads to so much of this trauma, we can no longer ignore it as if it's someone else's problem, because we are seeing the results of that problem, of that sexual abuse, and the average age is 9 through 13. And for boys, it's 9, 10 years old. And it's typically mother's boyfriend or an uncle or a male. Sometimes it's the women. I have an individual from my program whose mother was having sex with him. His biological mother was having sex with him at 11 years old. He will never be the same. And so your daughter's, her value is everything, dealing with the mental health crisis, because we see it every day, all day. Even if we don't necessarily see where it started, we see the end result.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Savvy Shabazz. In regards to the mental health, I'm a formerly incarcerated person, sentenced to a total of 28 years here in Kentucky. In regards to the mental health, I've had meetings with some of the top therapists here in this city. We have this issue called PICS, post-incarceration syndrome. It can't be treated by the average therapist. We go through things that you just can't treat. And after meeting them, I found that they're just not equipped with the curriculum that they need to treat us. But I also found out that a lot of them are afraid to work with us too. How do you deal with that?
So right now, I appreciate that question, sir, and thank you for sharing. So I talked about my staff. So I went through the exact same thing. I've dealt with many mental health experts, and many of them are intimidated and fearful, not of the person in front of them, but what's on the paper, right? And so they're not equipped to handle that and work with it. So now I only utilize formerly incarcerated individuals who are in social services and are therapists. I have 3 that are PhDs in psychology that are my therapists that I refer people to. So it's life lived experience, relatable, credible messenger is everything. So that's the key. So stop going to those that don't understand, find those that do. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Frank Schwartz.
Hi, Frank.
And my wife and I were in Kerala, India, in late August. And the reason I'm bringing this up is one of the things I learned about this state is that they have a literacy rate of 93%. In Kentucky, it's 78. And what that means is that women have a chance there not to be abused, that they have good education and good health care. And the reason I'm saying it, I'm talking from the other end, is you're saying, how can we help once people are incarcerated? How can we help them? But if we don't have a good education system, which our state sorely lacks, we will continue to imprison people for all kinds of reasons.
Yeah.
So I'm mentioning this because I'm still trying to understand. We spent 15 days, so it's certainly not enough time to learn about a place, but we experience a lot of amazing things. And I'm just sharing this with all of us, that there's people out there in Kerala, India, that they have figured something out that we have a hard time doing.
So thank you. I appreciate the question. I wish I had the answer for you, other than from my own personal experience, what I can tell you is that it is in fact connecting the dots with the people that are actually vested in doing what it takes. So you hear this term holistic approach, right? So what we've done is we've created a program for women, program for men and women, program for youth. Ideally, we have the mothers of the youth that we're dealing with and the husbands of the mothers and so forth, right? The holistic approach. But what I would simply say to you is that if everyone's operating in a silo, nothing's connecting. So the best thing to do is find ways to create. One of the things is a professor at Yale, I believe it was, he started seeing the scores of immigrant students from Asia surpassing the scores of American-born students in major numbers, right? And he was confused and he said, well, what is it that are they better in their school system and so forth? But the small nuances made a difference, such as when students from China and Japan were studying, they would create study groups together. So they would learn together. I guarantee you that's happening in India, right? Doesn't happen so much here in the United States, right? And so there's these nuances that have to sort of, we take a little from them, we take a little from them, but it also has to be driven by someone whose vested interest is to see all of this come together. So I'm a big proponent of not just fixing people before they go in jail, after they come out of jail, but before they go in jail, right? And so our recidivism rate is so low because we address the demons each time with each individual. When I tell you we have 65 people in a room at times, it's challenging. I have a staff of 17 in Bridgeport, and you got 65 people, and this one needs this, and this one wants that, and this one's having a breakdown, this one's relapsing on substance. Yesterday, midnight, I get a phone call, someone relapsing on substances. This is a whole nother issue. So we have to connect and string these things along: mental health, substance addiction. All of these things have to start. But if you're not talking about the same individuals, you're not helping, right? It's almost impossible. And again, that's a small sort of analogy for me. You're talking about a whole school system. I don't have the answer for that. And if someone here did have the answer, they'd be the commissioner of the schools, I'm sure. Anyone else?
Charlie Grady, thank you so much.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Christina Lee Brown Envirome Institute and the Filson Historical Society for doing it here, thank you for this Theodore Sedgwick lecture.
Thank
We're
you.
very grateful to everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you.